Okay. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra Ki Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So welcome everyone for the Sunday morning session on Science of Self-Realization. We have been discussing on a very interesting topic since last 3 sessions. And today we're going to conclude the topic, spiritual communism, which very wonderful discussion going on between Prabhupada and one professor in Russia by name Dr. Kotowski. Right? Prabhupada happened to go to Russia in 1971 during June, July. So that is the time when Prabhupada had got an invitation from one of the college universities for giving a talk, but somehow the government later on did not agree. The university, officials didn't agree for Prabhupada to give talk. So Prabhupada was confined within a hotel room with his secretary. So Prabhupada nevertheless met the professor from the Moscow University, who's actually professor of Indology and Asian studies and Asian religions, Vedic studies, and he had a very wonderful conversation with the professor, and we have been discussing about this, and many wonderful topics were discussed. We'll just take a quick recap before we move forward. And all these discussions are happening by the inspiration of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of Hare Krishna movement, worldwide Hare Krishna movement, Iskcon, who has so mercifully given us these conversations, were all recorded in one sense for us to take complete benefit of the Vedic perspective. How Prabhupada was so wonderfully presented the Vedic perspective to even a person who is communist, completely having the communistic idea. So that way we can get a wonderful perspective of how to present the Vedic culture. So we discussed in the previous 3 sessions how Prabhupada told the Vedic idea of communism, how it is all-encompassing, and even the living entities within a house, in anybody's house, for example, a lizard or a snake, they're also given proper care. Vedic communism doesn't mean only you have to take care of humans. It means everybody is actually given complete care. And in fact, Prabhupada says, a householder, before he would like to start his lunch or dinner, he would go out of the house and call out 3 times. If anybody is hungry, please come and have the food. Then when nobody comes, then he would go inside and then have his lunch or dinner. This is the way, which means it is a wonderful perspective of how everybody is understood as part and parcel of God, Krishna, and everybody has to be cared for. That is the idea. Whereas in the modern day communistic state, everything is done for the state or for the people, and then the conception about other entities in the state, they're not considered as the citizens of the state. That is their wrong understanding. And there's no conception of God in the present communistic way of say governments. That is the fault. So Prabhupada was indirectly hinting out these things in the beginning of his conversation. And while Prabhupada said this, the Russian professor was very much telling that people in Russia are taking a lot of interest in the Vedic studies, and many books like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Manusmriti are all nicely translated, and it is being it is being widely distributed to everybody. In that way, he was very happy to say that people are taking interest in Vedic literatures. And Prabhupada also mentioned that, yes, apart from the other literatures which the professor mentioned, of like Ramayana, Mahabharata, other Puranas, Prabhupada said, why don't you also have Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the most important Vedic literature. Please have this also translated. And Prabhupada himself offered that. We have many, already many parts of Bhagavatam being published in English very nicely, very wonderfully. So please, you can print this also. And further, as discussion went on, there was a wonderful talk about Hinduism and Varnashrama. Right? Prabhupada said this aspect of Hinduism, which is actually being assigned to people in India, Hindus, is actually the word which is coined by the Mohammedans, because people who are living on the other side of the Sindh River, they are called Hindus, and the type of culture they follow is called Hinduism. Prabhupada said actually our real identity in the Vedic culture is called Varnashrama. And about Varnashrama, Lord Krishna himself mentions in the Bhagavad Gita that he created this Varnashrama. What is Varnashrama? This is the social and the spiritual division of society. Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam. Society in any part of this whole creation is divided into these 4 social divisions and spiritual divisions based on the guna karma, based on their inclination of work and the type of nature they have acquired. The divisions of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. They are not caste, they are the divisions in society for a proper cooperation between different humans, because Brahmana basically means intellectual class, and the Kshatriya means the administrative class, and the Vaishya means the mercantile class, farmers, and the Shudra means the workers, ordinary workers, who will assist all the other 3 classes. So basically, these 4 social divisions are existing in every part of this world in under different names and different headings. So Prabhupada was trying to tell that this is how the Vedic system was organized. But right now, because people are not aware of this Vedic system, or this Vedic system has been degraded, so it looks like there's no different classifications. This was a discussion going on. And Prabhupada gave the reason why, because people are all trained as Shudras. They're all trained as only workers. They are given some training, they are given some education, and then they are made to work for something else. That is how things are going on in the present day society. So Prabhupada said there is a need for a systematic establishment of 4 orders of life. In fact, Prabhupada said in different context that his establishment of the worldwide Hare Krishna movement, or the Iskcon, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, is only 50% of his work done. He wanted to establish this Varnashrama system all over the world, because the Varnashrama is going to at least ensure people that they're moving on the right track. There's a nice statement by Prabhupada in one of his teachings. He says, Varnashrama is going to make the uncivilized man to a civilized human being, so that he can understand the purpose of life. Otherwise, left to themselves, human society, if you see, they're all going in one direction. They think, earning money, becoming big people, and then enjoying sense gratification is the purpose of life. There's no other purpose in life. So this aspect of clarity with regard to the purpose in life, goal in life, aim in life is missing, right? So this is actually making the whole society in a chaotic situation. So this is what Prabhupada wanted. Unless this systematic establishment of 4 orders of life is taken up, then society will be in a very disarrayed condition. So Prabhupada gave the example how even in the Vedic times, these divisions were very clear. Even though the Kshatriyas, or the administrators, the kings, used to rule, they used to have a Brahminical advisory council. Brahmana means intellectuals who are going to advise on all the matters of how to govern the state with regard to spiritual perspective. That's why in Bhagavad Gita also, the kings were known as Raja Rishis. Raja Rishi means basically they were not simply kings without any proper understanding, proper background. They had the complete support of this Brahminical advisory council, and they themselves were saintly in terms of understanding the purpose of what is the way the government, the state should be ruled, citizens should be guided forward, right? Because the king is not only supposed to protect the citizens from the material problems, rather he's supposed to also guide them in the spiritual path. That is the king's duty. So Prabhupada gave example of Chandragupta Maurya, where he had Chanakya Pandit as a prime minister who was advising him. That is how the Vedic system was built up. So Prabhupada said like this, there are many wonderful ideas in the Vedic culture, and our proposal is that we would like to take the best out of the original idea and present it to people, because following everything and changing everything overnight is not easy. And Prabhupada also said that it is not practical also to overnight make people to follow everything from the Vedic culture. We'd like to take the best out of the Vedic culture and try to see that these principles are at least followed, so that the purpose of life is achieved, right? And Prabhupada, reiterated the point that how in the modern civilization, this main thing is missing. The missing point in the modern civilization is the aim of life is missed. And people are advancing in education, science, technology, and so many aspects. But this point is missing. Where am I heading towards? Right? So this has to be corrected. And for this, the Varnashrama establishment is so essential. And when Prabhupada was giving this his perspective from the Vedic understanding, the professor gave his understanding with regard to how this body in it is dead. The owner, that is the soul, also dies. But this is the modern day understanding with regard to the limitation of we are just this body for time being, you just enjoy. What happens next, we don't know. This is an atheistic type of a understanding. So this is what is prevalent now. The whole atmosphere is surcharged with atheistic temperament. So Prabhupada says this is how we can see the same understanding in the professors, thinkers, politicians. They don't have any understanding of the eternality of the soul, right? The soul is ever existing. The body dies, but the soul continues its journey, take up different bodies. This aspect is missing, right? So Prabhupada said, in fact, when the professor was trying to assert that, no, this is what happens to our life, which means he had not understood the Vedic principles properly. Prabhupada asserted, actually, we have Vedic statements which are called infallible, which means they can never be wrong. So we simply accept them by, they accept their authority. This is called Shruti Pramana. Whereas we don't go into analysis and trying to research and ascertain what is what. Prabhupada was assuring this, because Lord Krishna is telling us, Vedic literature is telling that this body is going to die, soul is eternal. This is a Vedic statement. Prabhupada, in this context, gave the example of cow dung. He said how the cow dung is stool of an animal, but the stool, as per the Vedic scriptures, you touch your stool or any other animal's stool, you are supposed to purify yourself by taking a bath. But in the Vedic culture, cow dung is considered to be very pure. And cow dung is used for even our different pujas and rituals. In that way, the cow dung is accepted as the most auspicious item and is used for bathing during the many pujas, auspicious ceremonies. So Prabhupada asserted, this is a Vedic statement, cow dung is pure. When you do research and find out, it is proven to be truth. So like this, Prabhupada also gave example of conch shell. Touching the bone of any animal, any entity is actually impure, right? Whereas we keep the conch shell and it is blown before any puja. It is used for many puja things. So that is considered to be very pure. So these are all Vedic statements, and Prabhupada asserted this is how we accept Vedas. Because if we go on researching and trying to find out what is correct, what is wrong, there is no end to it. And we have our limitations, we have our own defects. Our senses are imperfect, and then we commit mistakes, and then we are into illusion, and people have cheating propensity, and what is correct now, tomorrow it will change. So this, like this, we have many shortcomings. So best course of our life will be to accept the authority, that is Vedic authority, Pramana, Shruti Pramana, and move forward in our life. That is going to save our time and make our life perfect, right? And Prabhupada in the meanwhile, was when the professor further asked about Krishna consciousness, how it is spread all over the world, and how Prabhupada was explaining how we have more than 100 centers. In 1971, Prabhupada had 100 centers. And then how everybody, in the Western countries, America, Europe, everybody are accepting Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada said, our main purpose is to make people Brahmanas. Again, Brahmana is not a caste. It is that we had to train people. That was the point Prabhupada was trying to make throughout his talk, that this lack of this varnashramas, systematic so proper. And Prabhupada also explained how one becomes a follower of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said, background doesn't matter. What you are, what is your birth, or what is your education, or what is your nationality, doesn't matter. The only requirement is that you have to be sincere, and you have to follow some regulations, what is given by Prabhupada as per the very scriptures, and chant Hare Krishna. Then you can be a follower, Prabhupada said. So taking this much, Prabhupada when he said, and Prabhupada was trying to again reiterate that yes, we are meant to make Brahmanas, intellectual class. The professor, was little having his version, his point. He's actually was giving the understanding that actually Varnashrama is based on birth. Means Brahmana means his father should be Brahmana. Then only you can become Brahmana. So Prabhupada is clarifying, Varnashrama is not based on birth. So the professor said, by creating Brahmanas from different social classes of society, you deny the old prescription of the Hindu scriptures. The biased understanding which this professor was having is that Brahmana means you have to be born in a Brahmana family. That's how the present day society in India is going on. Oh, I am born as Brahmin father, Kshatriya father, like that we are identifying ourselves with caste, a particular caste. That is not the way Vedic system was. So Prabhupada says, actually, we are not trying to deny any Vedic understanding, we are trying to establish it properly. That's what Prabhupada ascertained. And this professor went on with his idea. According to all scriptures, the Puranas, etc., every member of one of these four classes of Varnas has to be born within it. Prabhupada very firmly said, no, 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 no. Why? Because very clearly Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that these divisions of society, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, is not by birth. It is by qualification. It is very simple to understand. It's like you may be born of a doctor father, but you cannot be called doctor immediately. You have to go through training. You have to go to school, high school, then college, then medical college, then get certified, then you're called a doctor. Yes, of course, there's good opportunity for you to take up the course of medicine, because your father is already a doctor. He will guide you. But nevertheless, you have to qualify yourself. That's the point. So that way, we can see very clearly, Prabhupada is telling the wrong understanding, wrong idea which was prevailing in society, especially even in the Western philosophy, Western people, thinkers. This point was there that no, actually, just by birth you have to be Brahmana. No. Prabhupada says that is not the right idea. So the professor went on to say his own version because he has not understood the scriptures properly. He's saying that is the foundation of all the varnas. He's saying. Prabhupada says, no, I am sorry. What you're talking is not correct. The foundation, Prabhupada says, further, the professor continues to say the foundation of all varnas is this. Prabhupada says, no, you have spoken incorrectly. With great respect, I beg to submit that you are not speaking correctly. Just see the etiquette Prabhupada follows. Prabhupada is not, becoming angry or he's, shouting at the other person. No. A very, very, civilized way, in a very wonderful way, Prabhupada is telling, you have spoken incorrectly, Professor. With great respect, I beg to submit that you are not speaking correctly. Right? He's not, Prabhupada is not showing that I am very great scholar. You don't know anything. You simply here, listen to me. No. He's telling, no, he has spoken incorrect. This is not the right understanding. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. These four orders of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra were created by me according to the quality and work. There is no mention of birth. So Krishna very clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, the divisions, four divisions, social divisions of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, they are all, and the four spiritual divisions of Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa, they are not by birth, they are by qualification and type of activity you do, right? Very clear, Prabhupada is giving the Vedic evidence with Shruti Pramana. So Prabhupada further clarifies how Vedic culture is called Sanatana Dharma. So the professor now is telling, yes, I agree with you that this is the addition of later Brahmanas who try to perpetuate these qualities. Right now he is acknowledging, because Prabhupada gave Vedic evidence. Vedic evidence, Lord Krishna himself is talking. You cannot deny that. So Prabhupada says, yes, that has killed the Indian culture. And really, the people, in the Vedic culture, they distorted many things. Otherwise, there would have been no necessity of the division of part of India and Pakistan. Right? See, Prabhupada goes on to saying this. Because the Vedic culture got degraded. People, were not following the principles seriously, strictly. They killed the Indian culture. But has killed the Indian culture of, not following things in the right way. And that led to the partition after independence. Not only that, but from the historical point of view, this whole planet was Bharatvarsha. It was controlled by one flag at the time of Maharaj Parikshit. Very wonderful Vedic evidence Prabhupada is giving, historical evidence. The whole planet of Earth was called Bharatavarsha because it was ruled by one king by name King Bharata. This King Bharata was the son of one incarnation of Lord Krishna by name Lord Rishabhadev. We get this reference in Bhagavatam, right? Because of this ruling of King Bharata, who was very, very religious, this whole planet was called Bharatavarsha. And even up to the time of Maharaj Parikshit, the whole planet was ruled by one king, emperor, Samrat, right? Only later, after that, there were so many, nations and so many kings who came up. Then it gradually separated. That is the history, which means very beginning of Kali Yuga, Parikshit Maharaj, was ruling. After Parikshit left this world, the world was, gradually separated. Lately, they have separated Pakistan, so Bharatvarsha is now crippled into a small piece of land. Right? So many other things, happened. Otherwise, according to Vedic culture, this whole planet is called Bharatvarsha. Formerly, it was named Ilavrita Varsha, but since Emperor Bharat ruled this planet, it is called Bharatavarsha. We discussed on this. Right? And in this Bharatavarsha, what was happening is that there were so many subordinate kings. They were all, under the subjugation of this one emperor, one king. Like Parikshit Maharaj was considered as emperor. Of course, there were many other small, states, kingdoms, which were all ruled by other kings. They were all they accepted the sovereignty of one king, that is emperor, sitting at Hastinapura. So Prabhupada said, so this culture, Krishna consciousness, was always existent. Prabhupada is trying to tell this aspect of what we are discussing now, having the different social divisions, spiritual divisions, and people taking up spirituality was always prevalent. Not that, we are just introducing something new. It was always existing. Prabhupada says, consider any religion, maybe it's Christianity, Mohammedanism, or Jewish way of life. They are at most 200 to 300 years old. 2,000 to 3,000 years old. Right? Every religion in the present day context, you see, they have some history when it was started. Prabhupada says you cannot trace out the beginning of this Vedic scripture. It is therefore called Sanatana, eternal. Right? Sanatana means it has no date when it began. Since time immemorial, it has been existing or is existent in the creation. So this culture is for the whole human society. It is not a religious faith. So Prabhupada says it's not some sentiment or some belief system. No, it is a system which everybody has to. It's like with creation it has come as a part of our way of working. It's just like when an instrument or some gadget is manufactured, it comes with a manual. So when this world was created, this culture was given. The Sanatana culture was given. Sanatana type of life was given in the Vedic literatures. The whole society has to in that way follow that. Religious faith you can change, but real dharma you cannot change. Very nice statement Prabhupada is making. Because right now people say, oh, I change from this faith to other faith. People think religion you can keep changing. But this religion is not the right translation of the word dharma. Dharma means it is very constitutional to every one of us. Very nice example Prabhupada gives. It's like the dharma of sugar is to be sweet. When sugar is not sweet, then it is not called sugar, it is called something else. Right? Likewise, the dharma or the constitutional nature, which is inseparable, which is very much, it is part of that particular entity. Dharma of spirit soul is to serve. And naturally, it is serving Supreme Lord Krishna. That is the real dharma of the living entity. Right? Dharma cannot be changed. You have to serve. Prabhupada says, in whatever situation of your life, whether you are following whatever faith, you have to serve. Right? That is our real nature. So try to understand Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Give up all other forms of religion and just surrender to me. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Because we have invented and manufactured, concocted many types of different types of dharmas. Excuse me. So Krishna is telling us these different types of concocted, manufactured religions you have to give up and just follow one dharma, that is surrender to me, because that is what you're supposed to be doing as spirit soul. That is real knowledge, surrender to the Supreme. Right? So Prabhupada says this is what Sanatana Dharma is. This is what Varnashrama used to give us this understanding in every aspect of our activity and every aspect of our different dealings with people. Reminding yourself that what is that you're supposed to be doing. You or I, anyone, is surrendered to someone. That is a fact. Our life is by surrender, is it not? Do you agree with this point? Very nicely Prabhupada is bringing out logical point. Right? All of us have to surrender to someone. Right? We have to work under someone. Right? Now, all of us are under the government of India. Right? We cannot say I'm independent. Our life means we are under somebody. I am answerable to many things. Right? There are authorities above me. That's what the point. Prabhupada wants to ask the professor, do you agree with this point? The professor says, to some extent, you surrender. He's not fully agreeing. To some extent, he says. Prabhupada says, no. To the full extent you have to surrender. That is how our life is. The professor says, yes, you have to surrender to the society, for instance, to the whole people. He goes on to give his version, basically. Prabhupada says, yes, to the whole people, or to the state, or to the king, or the government, or whatever you say, this surrender must be there. You cannot say I'm independent in whatever way. Right? Either you have to surrender to people, society, or king, government. Somewhere you are surrendering. Without that, you don't have your existence. So Prabhupada clarifies with regard to further conversation with the professor that final surrender to Krishna. This is going to keep us satisfied, because we have been trying to surrender to this, that, and so many things. We are not satisfied. So what this professor says, full surrender is required. Anything what you do. The professor says the only difficulty is that we cannot half surrender to a government or a king. The principal difference is of surrender to a king, to a person, or to society. So the professor is giving his version. Basically, we cannot have half surrender. Yes, what you say is full surrender is important. But where to surrender? To king or to person or to society, right? So Prabhupada says, no, it is only a change of color, but the principle of surrender is there. Prabhupada is trying to make a very important point here, that as spirit soul, our nature is to surrender. Principle of surrender is there in all of us. But where to surrender is what is the question. Right now, our surrender is misplaced, misdirected. That has to be properly directed. Whether you surrender to monarchy, democracy, aristocracy, or dictatorship, you have to surrender. That is a fact. Right? Whatever you're under a particular government, whatever system they are following, that is what you're supposed to. You surrender to it. Right? You cannot oppose, or you cannot say I'm independent. Without surrender, there is no life. It is not possible. Right? This is how life is. All of us have to be surrendered. So we are educating people to surrender to the Supreme, wherefrom you get all protection. Just as Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam. It's a very important statement in Bhagavad Gita. This is a statement which Krishna makes towards the end of the Gita, 18th chapter. You give up all so-called concocted manufactured types of your systems and various responsibilities, and just surrender to me. Mam Ekam Sharanam Praja. Because that is what is going to give you real satisfaction. And we have been doing this, we have been trying to take up this, take up that, life after life, right? And we are not feeling sheltered or protected with anything, right? So Prabhupada says, we are educating people to surrender to Krishna, wherefrom you get all protection. This is assurance Krishna has given. No one can say, no, I am not surrendered to anyone, not a single person, right? It's a fact. Everybody is surrendered to someone. The difference is where he surrenders. The ultimate surrendering object is Krishna. Right? We are trying to do that, this, and to so many things we are dissatisfied, disappointed. But surrender to Krishna is going to give us real satisfaction. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says in 7.19, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanvan Man Prapadyate. After surrendering to so many things, birth after birth, when one is factually wise, he surrenders unto me. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudarlabha. Such as Mahatma is very rare. Just see. Wonderful statement from Bhagavad Gita. We have been surrendering to so many things. One life to this, one next life to one more thing, like this, life after life, we have been going on. But once you have got awakening of the proper understanding, no, nothing is going to satisfy me. Then he surrenders to Krishna. One who is factually wise is surrendered to Krishna. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudarlabha. Such a Mahatma is very rare, Krishna says. So the professor is giving his point of view now. But at the same time, it seems to me that surrender is to be accompanied by revolt. Right? Somebody you have to leave and go to somebody else. Before I change my position, I had to revolt here, and then I had to surrender, I had to take up something else. So he says the history of mankind has proved that mankind has developed only by revolt against some kind of surrender. He is actually basically referring to different types of revolutions which has happened in the history in the European countries, Western countries, like the French Revolution, American Revolution, right, like that. In the medieval age, there was a French Revolution. It was revolt against surrender, because the monarchy was going on at that time in France. So the people revolted against the government. It was revolt against surrender. We don't want to surrender to the government. It was the way. What Professor is trying to tell. But this revolution itself was surrender to the rank and file of the people. You agreed? He's asking a question to Prabhupada, right? History says all these things. Prabhupada says yes. So it is not enough to come to a full stop. Surrender is to be accompanied with revolt against some and surrender to other people. Right? So it's a very logically talking, Professor. Yes, surrender means somebody who have already surrendered, you have to give them up. If they are opposing, you have to revolt and then surrender to the new person or new system. So Prabhupada says, But the surrender will be fully stopped when it is surrendered to Krishna. So basically, Prabhupada is trying to tell, in our life, in our experience of our life, we have been trying to surrender to this person, that system, this thing, that thing. We are experimenting. And this is never ending. I'll give you a simple example. Say for some, health problem, you went to a doctor, maybe allopathic doctor, and he gave some medicine. Somehow it didn't, you have to surrender, right, to the doctor, and whatever he says, you have to follow. All the medicine, all the treatment you have to follow. And then somehow it didn't work out. Then you lost faith in that doctor. Then you go to homeopathy. Again, after some time it didn't work out. Then you go to Ayurveda. Like this, you go on. Right. So like this, things are such that in the material world, that you'll go on. So what Prabhupada is telling us that unless you surrender to Krishna, your surrender, or rather your change of surrender to different entities, different type of systems will go on. Can't we have full stop there? So the professor acknowledges, aha, that is full stop. No more surrender. Surrender to Krishna, everything is taken care. Any other surrender you have to change by revolution. Right? Because once you have surrendered somewhere, then not easy. A simple example is, yes, you're in the family system of wife, children, everybody. And if the husband says, no, I have to take up, I have to come out of, I want to retire from the family responsibility, it's not easy. The family will oppose, right? So a lot of opposition is there. That's how. Any surrender you have to change by revolution. But when you surrender to Krishna, that is full stop, over. But when you come to Krishna, then it is sufficient. You are satisfied. This is what you can experience. I'll give you an example. A child is crying and people move him from one lap to another. Oh, he does not stop. But as soon as the baby comes to the lap of his mother, what happens? It's a wonderful example Prabhupada is giving. Child is crying. Nobody can pacify the child. Right? Unless when the mother picks up and places the child on her lap, then the child is immediately pacified. Stops. Right? Yes, full satisfaction. So this surrender, so this professor is continuing. Yes, full satisfaction. So this surrender, these changes will go on in different categories. He's acknowledging. Professor acknowledging. Yes, like this, we go on. Now, this is not good. Change, just like in the modern day democratic government, they are constantly, having these elections every 5 years. So things change. Otherwise, the ruling government will not start exploiting the citizens. But the sum total of all is surrender to Maya. Prabhupada says very nice thing. What is all going on right now? Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that this surrender, neglecting Krishna, is all Maya. Anything else you do, you think that is good, this is good, going on in the material world, is all actually illusion. Reality is to surrender to Krishna. Either you surrender to this or that, but final surrender is surrender to Krishna. Then you will be happy. Right? The process of surrender is there, but surrender to Krishna keeps one quite satisfied transcendently. To get real satisfaction, real peace, you have to surrender to Krishna. Anything else will only give you some sort of happiness, temporary happiness, but not going to give us real happiness. Again, you will be hankering for something better, right? So the process of as an entity, as a living entity, we have the nature of surrendering, but where to surrender is the question, is the point. Right medicine administered will surely cure the patient. Prabhupada makes one more wonderful point with regard to explaining how surrender to Krishna is the only solution. So Professor asks a question. Haven't you come across hostile attitudes to your teachings from Orthodox Hindus or Brahmanas in India? Very nice question, very straightforward question the professor is asking. Do you find any opposition from the other Hindus because you're teaching so openly, boldly about what is said in the Vedic scriptures? Prabhupada says we have subdued them. Right? Opposition will be there because their comfort zone is shaken. Prabhupada says, you have subdued them. So Professor is happy, yes. And Prabhupada says, any Orthodox Hindu may come and challenge, but we have our weapon, the Vedic literature. So no one has come. So Prabhupada is always, confirming again and again that yes, our whole strength is the scriptures, Vedic literatures. We are not talking anything manufactured or concocted. We are basing our arguments completely on Vedic scriptures. So nobody can refute. So even Christian priests in America love me. They say these boys are American, Christian, Jewish, and now they are so much after God, but we could not deliver them. They are admitting, right? Even the other religions, followers, the priests, they are appreciating Prabhupada's way of, functioning. Their fathers and their parents come to me, offer their obeisances, and say, Swamiji, it is our great fortune that you have come here to teach God consciousness. So on the contrary, I have been well received. Right? Prabhupada is just trying to give you the comparison how in India, the Orthodox, Brahmins and other community people, they are opposing. Whereas in the Western countries, other religions, they are welcoming and they are very much supportive. In India also, since you inquired of India, all other sects are admitting that before me, many kinds of Swamis went to the Western countries, but they could not convert even a single person to Krishna consciousness. They're admitting that. So there is some level of appreciation in India also that, many other sects are admitting that. Before Prabhupada went, nobody could make even one person a devotee of Krishna. But Prabhupada made so many Westerners into devotees of Krishna. That is Prabhupada's great achievement. As far as I am concerned, I don't take any credit, but I am confident that because I am presenting the Vedic knowledge as it is, without adulteration, it is being effective. That is my confidence. Prabhupada always, made this statement that the credit for me is that I am giving pure milk. I am not adulterating it. I am not mixing anything with that. Pure gold, right? So that's what Prabhupada says. When things are presented purely, then it has the potency. That's why Prabhupada gave the Bhagavad Gita as it is. The version of Bhagavad Gita which we have with us is called Bhagavad Gita as it is. Because Prabhupada has not distorted anything. Whatever Krishna wanted to tell us, he has given us. Right? That is the credit Prabhupada says. If you have the right medicine and you administer it to a patient, you must be sure that he will be cured. This is what Prabhupada says. So, the patient has some ailment and this is diagnosed for a particular, in a proper way, and then the right medicine is given. Then what happens? Definitely the disease will be cured. Right? You have diagnosed something and you have prescribed some other medicine, it will not act. So Prabhupada further goes on to clarify how the Indian whole subcontinent is mostly they're all Krishna conscious. In India, there are millions of Krishna conscious persons. So the professor is asking a different question now. How many out of your 1,000 disciples do you have in India itself? How many of your community do you have in India? Because Prabhupada was telling about how in the Western countries, Europe, America, Australia, everywhere, Krishna consciousness spread so well. All the Westerners are taking very well. So the professor was inquisitive to know what is going on in India. So Prabhupada says, in India, there are many Krishna conscious persons. Hundreds and thousands and millions. In India, there is no question. There is not a single Hindu who is not Krishna conscious. Prabhupada is saying to acknowledge that yes, in India, everybody is Krishna conscious. Right? And not that, some are following, some are not following, because everybody is seriously, strictly following Krishna consciousness. So the professor acknowledges, yes, I understand. Vaishnavas, this is called the Vaishnava cult. You have been in India, so as it is commonly known, there are many millions of Vaishnavas. Prabhupada is saying, yes, this is how it is. In India, it is called Vaishnava cult. All are devotees of Krishna. For example, a gentleman, Indian gentleman present, is the commander of Air India Airlines. There was one person with Prabhupada there, an Indian gentleman. He was actually commander of Air India. He is not my disciple, but he's a Vaishnava Krishna conscious. Because the very fact that he's come to meet Prabhupada, it shows that this gentleman, because when Prabhupada arrived, he physically came to meet because he was, he was in Russia working for Indian Airlines. So he says he's not a disciple, but he's a Vaishnava, Krishna conscious devotee. Prabhupada says, similarly, in India, there are millions of Krishna conscious persons. All are seriously following, strictly following. Even Mohammedans were Krishna conscious. At Gorakhpur University, there's a Mohammedan professor who is a great devotee of Lord Krishna. So it is natural. Prabhupada says during his times, many Mohammedans used to observe Janmashtami so seriously. Everybody used to observe Janmashtami so nicely. So it is said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Krishna consciousness is everywhere in everyone's heart. Because we as spirit souls are all originally having devotion to Lord Krishna. Jivera Swarupa Nitya Krishna Das is what Prabhupada is saying to tell. Nitya Siddha Krishna Bhakti. It is simply has to be awakened by this process. That is all. It is there in your heart also. So Prabhupada is telling, becoming devotee of Krishna is not something which is artificial. It is naturally there in our heart. Just that it has to be properly awakened. That's all. Otherwise, all of us are actually devotees naturally. It is not that it is foreign to you. In everyone's heart, there is Krishna consciousness. By this process, we have to awaken it. So Prabhupada is trying to explain to the professor that when I went to the Western countries and started preaching this Krishna consciousness movement, they all become devotees of Krishna because this is something natural to naturally present in our heart. It is not that I'm artificially made them to become followers of Krishna. It is just like the way the sun rises. It is not that all of a sudden the sun comes from nowhere. It is there, but it rises in the morning, right? So sun is hidden, or rather it is not in our vision in the night, but it comes at the right time or rises at the right time. Sunrise happens in the morning. Similarly, this Krishna consciousness is everywhere, but somewhere or other it is now covered. By this process, it is reawakened and aroused by association. The Prabhupada is confirming how everybody is becoming Krishna conscious. Because in a proper association, one can become a nice devotee of Krishna. So further, Professor is asking some informal questions. You came yesterday to Moscow. How have you seen something here in Moscow? Prabhupada says, no, I'm not very much interested in sightseeing. So Prabhupada always said this, when I'm traveling, it's not that I'm sightseeing or want to have a comfortable journey. No, I'm traveling for the mission of spreading this Krishna consciousness principles, Vedic principles. Professor says, but in any case, just to stay in an old style hotel is not interesting. Not many people to see. And you are leaving the day after tomorrow? Prabhupada says, yes, that is my program. You are leaving for the United States or for Europe? Further, like the talks they're having. Prabhupada says, yes, for Europe, for Europe, Paris. And we have 2 very big ceremonies in London and San Francisco. They are making arrangements for the Ratha Yatra car festival. This car festival is observed in Jagannath Puri. So Prabhupada is saying we have Ratha Yatra festivals being organized in London and San Francisco. Right? And this is a festival is happening in India, in Jagannath Puri. Prabhupada is asking you, had you been to India, to Jagannath Puri? So the professor acknowledges, yes, the car festival has been held from immemorial times, a very old tradition, huge cars, basically the Ratha, cars with Rathas. Prabhupada says, yes, and it is now being introduced in the Western countries in London and San Francisco. And gradually, maybe we'll introduce it in the other countries also. Just see the confidence with which Prabhupada is talking. Right? So we are introducing the Vedic culture, which is actually so natural in everybody's life, and people are following. And Rath Yatra, what is happening in Jagannath Puri is happening in London, San Francisco, and Prabhupada says we want to introduce this in all the other countries. Prabhupada says in London, the professor is asking, in London there is a large Indian community. Prabhupada says, no, not Indians. Actually, my disciples, Englishmen and Americans, they are organizing it. Prabhupada is confirming. Not because Indian community is helping me, no. And it is organized by the Englishmen and Americans. The Indian communities in London and San Francisco are trying to become, the word Sahib. So the professor, laughs. He says, yes, westernized. A very great social anthropologist at the university has written something very interesting about this. How Indians, they come to Western countries, they become westernized, sahibs. He says there are two processes: the process of westernization among Brahmanas, mainly the upper class, and the process called Sanskritization, the process of adopting Brahmana rituals, etc., by so-called lower class, even untouchables. The professor is giving his understanding with regard to how the Indians have lost their culture. The Brahmanas are trying to become westernized, sahibs, and the people from other lower strata of society, they are trying to follow the Sanskrit and other rituals, other things like that. Prabhupada says, the professor continues to say, it is very interesting process in India just now, but India's position, unfortunately, is problematic. It is whatever professor is telling is a fact. Things are becoming, different way it is going on. So Prabhupada says, the difficulty is that India is nowhere. They are trying to imitate Western life, but from the materialistic or technical point of view, they are 100 years back. This is the situation in India, right? The difficulty is that we are nowhere. Neither we are following Vedic culture, or you want to imitate Western life, we are 100 years behind, right? So the professor acknowledges, yes, that is right, but what to do for India? Prabhupada says, there is one thing I'm experiencing. In India, if India's spiritual asset is distributed, that will increase India's honor. Right? So very nicely Prabhupada put it, that we have to distribute the spiritual culture and the spiritual wonderful heritage of India, the asset of India. And this will actually bring in India's glory. Because everywhere I go, people still adore Indian culture. People are expecting Indian culture, right? If this treasure house of India's spiritual knowledge is properly distributed, at least people outside of India will understand that they are getting something from India. It's so nicely Prabhupada has put it. Right? So the greatest treasure we have is our culture, in spiritual culture, Vedic culture. This has to be distributed everywhere. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted. That you, born in India, please distribute this Vedic culture everywhere, because everybody can perfect their lives. Prabhupada did that. Prabhupada said, one Indian, I went around and did this. What if all Indians take up this responsibility? The whole world will change into Vaikuntha, Prabhupada says. So the professor acknowledges, of course, you're right. The Indian cultural heritage is to be made known everywhere. But at the same time, in what way would this benefit the Indian masses themselves? The professor has a question. What you say is correct. Indian culture has to be spread everywhere. But how will the Indians benefit from this? They are sitting in India and they have nothing to gain from the spreading of Indian culture, cultural heritage all over the world. Indian villagers have to save fertilizers, tractors, etc. Basically, he's giving the understanding how the spreading of Indian culture, how it will help India itself. That is the question. Prabhupada says, yes, we do not object to that. They also benefit in a material way. The professor continuing, yes, I don't think you can object, but at the same time, something has to be done in India. One may call it westernization. But this introduction to an industrial technological revolution is needed in all fields of Indian life, agriculture, industry, etc. Basically, the professor is telling how the westernization, which has happened all over the world, it should happen in India also. Nevertheless, your idea of spreading Vedic culture is okay, but they should also move forward in the westernized way of life. Is what is his view, which the professor is giving. What Prabhupada says, very nice perspective Prabhupada gives. Arjuna, after understanding the Bhagavad Gita, was a fighter, and after So before understanding Gita, he was a fighter, and after understanding the Bhagavad Gita, he remained a fighter. The Prabhupada says, so we don't want to change the position. For example, you're a respectable professor, a teacher, right? We don't say that you must change your position. So what Prabhupada want to say is, whatever type of lifestyle you may live, as a Western type of lifestyle or an Indian type of lifestyle, doesn't matter. But your spiritual culture should be intact. Your spiritual understanding should be intact. That's what Prabhupada is going to tell us here. So, Prabhupada says, we have come to convince you about our philosophy, that's all. You follow whatever type of life you're living, whatever type of influence you're having, it's okay. But you be convinced with the philosophy of Bhagavata, which we have come to explain to you. Arjuna was refusing to fight Krishna. I don't want to kill my relatives. I do not want this kingdom. This was Arjuna's state of affairs. Right? This was what Arjuna was telling. Before hearing Gita, he was having his own perspective. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to fight. I don't want kingdom. You're seeing so many things. But he was taught the Bhagavad Gita, and at the end, when Krishna inquired, what is your decision now? He said, Karishye Vachanam Tava. Arjuna said, yes, I shall act as you say. Yes, see. Before beginning Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was the same warrior. And after hearing Bhagavad Gita also, he remained the same warrior. But his perspective changed. His understanding changed. That's what Prabhupada is going to tell us. That means his consciousness changed. He was a fighter and he remained a fighter, but he changed his consciousness. We want that. So whatever profession one is having or one is going on, whatever nationality one is having, you go on with that. But please have your consciousness transformed into spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness. We want that to happen. We don't want to disturb the present condition of society. We are not against technology, right? We can't overnight change anything. But we try to make one understand this Krishna consciousness. That is our program. Right? That is what we are supposed to be. That is what we want all of us to, all entire humanity to follow. Because that is what is going to save them from the repeated cycle of birth and death. That is our program. Prabhupada is very clear what we want to do. Right? So Prabhupada wonderfully explains how you can make this how it can happen, how to make one's life perfect. I'll take a few more extra minutes. It's the last portion of this whole conversation. So the professor is telling, so when Prabhupada said, yes, our program is to make everybody Krishna conscious, whatever situation you are in. The professor says, of course, at the same time, the final goal of any consciousness is to change the society, to make it a better society. He also acknowledges, right? We have to change the consciousness. Prabhupada says that it automatically happens. When you change your consciousness from spiritual conscious to spiritual conscious, automatically things happen. Today, we are reading in Bhagavata very nicely. Prabhupada says, spiritual well-being should be the important aspect in our life. When spiritual well-being is taken care, material well-being follows. It's like it's like putting the horse before the cart. Right? That's what Prabhupada says. It's automatic. When the spiritual consciousness is properly awakened, things automatically change. So the professor is telling, I am not really so happy that the ultimate goal is not to disturb society. Because in modern society, there are many things to be changed through consciousness. Right? Prabhupada's view was, we cannot change anything in society as of now. Consciousness has to be changed. The same gadgets, same things, what is being used, use it for Krishna. Right? That's what Prabhupada is going to tell. Whereas this professor is having his perspective with regard to, maybe, we have to change some things. So Prabhupada says, the change can happen when you start following. The preliminary change is to follow the rules and regulations of austerity. Prabhupada is going to go on, goes on to give some advice with regard to how to change society. When you follow the austerity of no intoxicants, don't take intoxicants. So the professor is telling, no indulging intoxicants, simplicity. The professor says, yes, if one takes to this process, it will be simple. Life will become very simple. then others will come automatically. Prabhupada says, one's whole life will change. Because these four things, illicit sex life, intoxicants, meat eating, and gambling, are very great impediments to social improvement. Actually, when the consciousness with regard to what is the purpose of life, is all very clear, you automatically refrain yourself from these four things. Right? So when these four things are followed by everybody in society, society becomes so wonderful, so simple. Everybody is heading towards the right direction. So even the professor acknowledges that will automatically make life simpler, because a person who does not indulge in illicit sex, intoxicants, and such other things has to lead a comparatively simple life. You see, because these four things, which are called the pillars of sinful life, are complicating our lives. Everything around, you see, in the whole society, this is what these four things are prominently seen. Intoxication, gambling, meat eating. For that, so big, huge establishments are going on, and the whole society is geared up to cater to these demands of these four things. It's actually making our life very complicated. So Prabhupada is telling very clearly, unless these four things are given up, life cannot be simple. And when the professor acknowledges this, so Prabhupada is very nicely telling. Other day I was speaking in Bombay with a respectable gentleman. I was telling him that Krishna says, what does Krishna say? Mam hi pata vyapashritya epes yu papa yunayah striyo vaishya sadha shudras tepi yanti param gatim. Those who are low born, papa yunayah, Stri, Vaishyas, and Shudras are also included by accepting me. By accepting my shelter, they are also elevated to the transcendental position. So Krishna says that everybody can be benefited. How we can benefit everybody? Prabhupada is giving Bhagavad Gita's quote from Krishna that everybody, they take shelter of me, of Krishna, then they're elevated to transcendental position. Maybe their background is not very relevant here. Now, why the higher classes of Hindu society neglected this injunction of Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita so clearly it is telling everybody should be given opportunity for taking shelter of Krishna. Why did the higher classes didn't follow this? Suppose one is Papa Yoneha, low born. Krishna says that he can be elevated to the transcendental position if he accepts me. Very clearly, Krishna is telling. Simply you have to give opportunity for everybody to take Krishna's shelter. Why wasn't this message propagated by the higher class of people so that the so-called low-born could be elevated? Why did they reject them? So Prabhupada is indirectly hinting out that caste system and different type of discrimination which was going on and even now going on, went on and which even now going on in society. It is actually making people deprived of this wonderful message of Bhagavad Gita. Right? Prabhupada says the whole problem is because of this. We didn't implement Krishna's orders, Krishna's directions. Result was that instead of accepting the Mohammedans, the Indians rejected them, and now they are partitioned off. They have become eternal enemies of India. Right? So this is the time when Prabhupada was, like there was Bangladesh war going on. Right? Partitioning was going on. So 1971. So Prabhupada is telling, practically telling how, if you had given opportunity for them to have a cooperative living and explain to them about our understanding, it was all Prabhupada says. In Vedic, at least during his time, the many Mohammedans were so wonderfully following many principles of Bhagavad Gita. So for the first time, we are trying to elevate persons to the higher position of Krishna consciousness, even if one is low born. So Prabhupada is taking this principle. See, just see how Prabhupada is so meticulously bringing out the wonderful principles of the Bhagavad Gita and trying to implement in the entire world. Right? Krishna is telling everybody should be given opportunity to elevate themselves in Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada is trying to give this wonderful opportunity. Because the soul is pure. In the Vedas, it is said that the soul is untouched by any material contamination. It is simply temporarily covered. The covering should be removed. Then one becomes pure. So Prabhupada is giving he's trying to see that everybody has spirit soul. He's not seeing, oh, as having different bodies. Oh, he's a white body, he's American body, Indian body. No, not like that. All of us are spirit souls. Prabhupada, with this broad perspective, he went, traveled across the world and wanted to deliver them. And they are right now having this covering. Today you are born in one country, tomorrow some other country. Like this, we have been changing our nationalities, our positions. But our real situation is we are spirit souls. We are pure spirit souls. Right now, the covering of material contamination is actually causing us completely entangling in this material world. That is the mission of human life. To uncover ourselves from this material environment, come to spiritual understanding and surrender to Krishna. Then life is perfect. Very wonderfully Prabhupada concludes. Mission of human life is what? We have to come out of this, bodily consciousness, this material environment, awaken our spiritual understanding and surrender to Krishna. That is the perfection. So with this, Prabhupada concludes his talk with the professor. So we close this particular topic of spiritual communism with this presentation. I took a few extra minutes because I wanted to conclude. So before I close, anybody has anything to ask, discuss? So this is all in the book Science of Self-Realization. I want all of you to go through this carefully, but it will further give you, much deeper enlightenment with regard to what Prabhupada wanted to spread across the world. It's not simply some sectarian or some sort of a sentimental type of a understanding. No, Prabhupada wanted to give out a universal understanding, which is actually the way Lord Krishna has created this whole world. But somehow, because of our ignorance, we are trying to do so many things which is actually entangling ourselves. Okay, so I'll close.